Right now, we're already filming. There's people. Yeah. My big face. Alright, now just don't move and you're good.
It is as if man had been appointed managing director of the biggest business of all, the business of evolution. Whether he is conscious of what he is doing or not, he is in point of fact determining the future direction of the evolution of this earth. This is his inescapable destiny, and the sooner he realizes it and starts believing it, the better for all concerned. Aldous Huxley's brother, Julius Huxley, asserted in his 1957 book, Transhumanism, while the future direction of human cannot be predicted accurately to a T, it can be predicted that the future direction of man's endeavors, offshore oil drilling, will continue to be mishandled. Until 2008, there have been previously 2 bans on offshore oil drilling, a presidential ban signed by George Bush Sr. in 1989, and the other being a congressional ban, being signed in 1981, that was renewed every year since. That was until this year. For this was the year when George W. Bush addressed Congress to permit oil drilling to combat oil prices, being a lame duck in office, and with a Republican majority in the House of Representatives, the majority agreed. This was just one of the pair of victories George W. Bush has won for his cause with oil. His last federal action was to overturn his father's, George W. Bush Sr.'s presidential ban in July. With these federal actions in place, it could allow the government to lease Atlantic waters and begin offshore drilling as early as 2011. In a matter of months, Republicans under the Bush administration turned offshore oil drilling from a non-issue into political gold, said Joseph Herbert of the New York Times 2008. With the constant fear of disrupting the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge and near extinction of the polar bear, the offshore oil drilling matter should not be taken lightly. Furthermore, on the North Pole, this is the year where Sergei Balashnikov research team has been, and they have had much to say about the ocean's warming linked to carbon emissions from oil and from automobiles, which also uses oil. While there are a few benefits from offshore oil drilling, the benefits do not outweigh the negative, and sometimes it's something President Bush, the American public, and this new President Barack Obama should take into account immediately. Scientists have developed innovative techniques to reach the Arctic's National Wildlife Refuge oil, and virtually no impact on the land or local wildlife, said President Bush in 2006. While the technology is getting better, it is definitely not safe to say that this is true. The Bush administration has been filled with lies before, and in this world with oil, nothing is for certain with oil spills and accidents. If something did happen, it would be catastrophic. Christy Whitman, administrator in the Environmental Protection Agency, assures us, saying to MSNBC of October 24, 2008, that cutting-edge technologies would significantly reduce or eliminate a number of the effects. Real assuring a number of the effects. With the advancements in oil drilling, and given everything does go flawless, would this be cost beneficial for the United States? Some senators believe it is not. Not long ago, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, a longtime ardent defender of the drilling bans along each coast, said lifting the ban would not produce any oil for 7 to 10 years. The U.S. Energy Information Administration, an independent statistical agency within the Department of Energy, sometimes referred to the EIA, adds that oil in the Arctic National Wild Refuge could have as little as 41 cents a barrel when it actually comes into play in like 10 to 20 years from now. And it supports Senator Pelosi in saying that the peak would be in 10 to 20 years as well. The National Arctic Wildlife Refuge, when open, they say that our dependence on foreign oil would reduce 40% at best case scenario. Best case scenario. That would mean from 2018 to 2030, there would be a $135 billion reduction to $327 billion spending on foreign oil. Although this $125 billion coupon off, I'd say, may seem like a benefit, President Bush and his fellow G8 summit leaders agreed on interim greenhouse gas reduction goal, which would be in place by 2020, which is also the same time this best case scenario oil, which would come into play. Many European countries that are in the European Alliance has already put in play these greenhouse gas goals, and if you go over it, they would tax you a certain percentage of how much you go over, and that would definitely not be beneficial for putting all our money into that. With the production cost of harvesting oil, which wouldn't begin to the peaking start of the greenhouse gas reduction proposition, it is evident that the investment is clearly not worth the giant investment that we're about to put in once again. To the United States, if we switch to plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, according to the National Resources Defense Council, it would roughly save us twice the amount we would get from the refuge of 4 billion barrels a day, and that would keep going. So if the country invested more into alternative energies and less into oil, it would save the resources and possibly find a true solution instead of waste more resources in this scarce world for something that would be gone before we know it. Bowhead whales, to change their migration patterns, have been thrown off course because of the drillings and offshore seismic exploration, and even some polar bear dens have been extensively disturbed, as well as caribou herds, which have been moving south to find vegetation due to the disruption. While predators such as Arctic foxes, ravens, and gulls still feed on the garbage around the oil fields. There are some impacts that can't be eliminated, but there continues to be tremendous progress, says Ed Porter, an economist with the American Petroleum Institute, inferring the effects on oil. Oil drilling has been known to devastate ecosystems, and an area like the refuge with endangered birds, it would definitely not be beneficial for the pair. Lastly, for the first time in human history, scientists say the North Pole will be completely void of ice this upcoming summer of 2009. Russian scientist Sergei Balashnikov of the Arctic and Antarctic Research Institute in St. Petersburg will certainly agree, because this year his 21-person research team was evacuated ahead of schedule because of ice melting. Balashnikov reported on July 14th to 2008 Associated Press that the research crew, which landed September 2007 on a 1.2 mile by 2.5 mile ice floe near Zemla archipelago in the Antarctic, during its westward drift, is shrunken less than 1,000 feet by 1,500 feet. While you may ask, why would this be linked to offshore drilling? Oil is in the Arctic, and it's said that Russia sent last year an expedition to plant a Russian flag under the seabed, which has a giant mountain scale underneath the North Pole, which is said to have rich sources of natural petroleum and gas. In conclusion, it is clear the American taxpayer has had enough with gas prices, and they should be not accepting of old Bush just to slide one more in before his time is over. With Congress thinking about bailing out the United States auto industry for $25 billion to see if it can catch up with the foreign automaker, which has already been fuel efficient, on top of the cost to produce 20 months estimated, which would, the 20 months is if we actually harvested the oil, it would just be 20 months of American dependent, from that. If we cut off foreign and everything, it would just be 20 months fully self-dependent of that, which we utilize about the same time that the greenhouse gas emissions would come into play. And we would possibly be taxed on that. And with the ice continuing to melt, possibly billions of dollars would be something that would decrease our environment as well. So today some labs have even created some batteries that have the same size and have 10 times the amount of battery life. And also on top of that, another lab has created decomposing water into hydrogen that can heat cars and homes in this day and age. But yet we are still stuck in this oil age. The oil age is linked to offshore drilling, and the sooner we can get away from it, the sooner we can get away from the tolls we are going to pay in our environment. I'd like to leave with a quote from Bill Richardson. He's the new Mexico governor now and former U.S. Energy Secretary. He told CNN on 2008, "It's a very bad idea. First of all, it will take 30 years before the gas prices lowering them get into effect, and it will take at least 10 years to start the drilling even. So if logic isn't clear enough, and the former Energy Secretary can't convince you, I agree with Julius Huxley in saying that man is a pointing director of evolution. I just hope we can safely evolve away from the primitive oil drilling."